Chanell Love 22. It's a vibe. Like, follow, and subscribe. Hi, everyone. Welcome to the second episode of the Chanell Love 22 podcast. I'm your host, Tawana, also known as Sweet TMP. In this episode, I'm going to touch on a topic that has been coming up very often for me. I feel like it's very important that we discuss this topic. So, this podcast episode is titled Love, Validation, and Healing Breaking Generational Curses. So, I've been hearing a lot of people um, talk about how they feel anxious and how they're always seeking outside validation. So I just wanted to kind of dive into what that can stem from and then how that can show up in our everyday lives. So, understanding how your past can show up in your present life. So, a lot of childhood traumas can cause you to seek validating behaviors, cause you to be anxious, cause you to experience um, these things in your adult life. Talking about childhood trauma in particular, you can have physical trauma, sexual trauma, emotional trauma, verbal trauma in your childhood, which can show up in your everyday adult life, and of course, lead to things such as validation seeking behaviors, low self esteem, anxiety in adulthood. Also, most importantly, we need to come up with a way to break these generational curses, right? And why this matters is because it isn't just about understanding what happened to us, it's about creating a new environment to where we can grow and heal and become the best versions of ourselves, right? Reclaim our power, encourage our children, have healthier relationships, grow as an adult. And we can't do that without recognizing where that stems from. So I wanted to touch on that. Let's dive into a little bit of understanding, excuse me, understanding what childhood trauma is. So childhood trauma can take many forms, right? Like I just said before, you can have emotional, verbal, physical, sexual. Growing up in a household where someone has an addiction, growing up in a household where someone has a mental illness and it's untreated, or they aren't doing what they're supposed to do, even though they are supposed to take medicine, but they're not, or they don't even know that they have a mental illness, because of course, like I always mention and bring up, mental health in the African American household is taboo. Like, that's something that we don't talk about. So of course, it's not surprising that if you grew up in a household in your childhood with someone who had a mental illness that was undiagnosed, or sometimes you can just be in a household where you feel unseen or unheard, or you don't feel comfortable, or like you're in a loving environment. That also is childhood trauma. So it's not always about what happened. Sometimes it's about what didn't happen. I hear a lot of people say they grew up in a household where they didn't receive a lot of hugs, didn't receive a lot of love. They weren't able to express their emotion. They weren't able to cry. They weren't able to voice their opinion. And this is very common within our community, within our household. You weren't able to express yourself, even if you felt like you were right and your parent was wrong, or they had a misunderstanding. A lot of times that just had to be suppressed and you were not able to express yourself. So those things create stressful environments and also contribute to your anxiety and your low self-esteem, and you seeking validation seeking behaviors in your adult life. So when you talk about how trauma affects the brain as a child, your brain's not developed all the way. So of course, all these traumatic events, all these traumatic experiences, your little child brain can't process it. And what it does is causes stress and cause you to rewire your brain in a way that makes you more anxious, in a way that makes you more on edge. You're looking for danger, you're looking for rejection, you're looking for the next thing to happen, you're looking for the next time you're getting yelled at. This this is what causes you to have these symptoms show up throughout your life, because you've been experiencing since childhood, and now you're an adult, and you feel uncomfortable, you feel anxious, you feel like you need to make sure that someone is okay with the way that you're doing things, that you're doing it right. You're seeking that validation. And a lot of adults struggle with low self esteem. A lot of adults struggle with not feeling like they're good enough. That's how we become people pleasers. You know, a lot of adults don't set those boundaries. They are always yes, 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 even though you want to say no, you just don't say no, because this is learned behavior. You know, you're trying to please everyone around you. You're trying to make sure you're doing everything right. Then we have those adults who become perfectionists. They want to make sure they do every single thing right. So they're double checking themselves. They're stressed out about doing one task so right that they can't even carry on with doing the whole project, because they're just stuck on trying to make sure that they do it perfectly. And of course, we're not all perfect. You're going to make mistakes. This is how you learn. This is how life is. We learn from our mistakes. So avoiding conflicts. Yes, definitely. A lot of adults avoid conflicts, avoid avoid speaking up for themselves, because their fear of rejection. Like, they don't want to feel like they are abandoned, or just the fear of being abandoned, someone telling you no, or someone not accepting who you are. So you kind of, keep quiet and go with the flow. These validation seeking behaviors, you can see it sometimes in your workplace. Sometimes a lot of people are on social media seeking attention. I know we see that a lot. We're like, why would you post that, or why are they telling their business on social media? Or why would you post your child on social media? All of these things are trying to get likes. You're trying to get people to follow you. Your validation. You want attention, right? So this could look like, or you want reassurance, right? You want to make sure that you are still who you say you are. You still that girl, or you still that guy, um but staying in a relationship, staying in relationships where you are not valued because you're afraid to be alone. That's a big one. I feel like people definitely have attachment issues, and they are in relationships even though it's not healthy, but they are afraid of being alone, afraid of being abandoned. That all comes from seeking validation. It can be stemmed to some of your childhood trauma. Low self esteem is something that a lot of people deal with, and it does stem from childhood trauma. But also, I think that we don't encourage ourselves enough. Sometimes in the household, you don't get enough encouragement. You don't hear well done or good job enough. In your childhood, some people experience being yelled at, being cursed out. Whatever they do is not good enough. So these things, all these behaviors lead to you having low self esteem. Maybe you were criticized more often than your other sibling, and it made you feel like the things you did didn't matter. As an adult, this shows up as negative talk. So if you see someone always doubting themselves, or always, oh, I'm so stupid, or why didn't I think of that, or I'm so done, I can never, I can't, all of these negative self negative comments and feelings and views towards yourself, that contributes to your low self-esteem. People feeling like they don't deserve happiness. I always tell people to be sure to uplift yourself. If you don't uplift yourself, no one else will. If you don't have respect for yourself, if you don't set those boundaries, if you don't stand up for yourself and let people know what you will and won't tolerate, then no one else will do that for you. People will run over you, people will take advantage of you. You have to protect yourself, protect your energy, protect your mind, protect your mental health. That is your job. So just doing some things like daily affirmations, encouraging yourself to feel better about yourself, to think more positive about yourself. I always tell people to counter that negative thought with a positive one. So, of course, we have so many thoughts going through our heads every day. When you have a negative thought, think of something positive. Like continue to do that on a daily basis, and you will see how much positive things show up in your life versus you just thinking negative all the time. Something bad's going to happen. This is not going to work out. The more positive you think, the more positivity you attract in your life. And I also encourage people to not only just the daily affirmations to themselves, but involve your children in these healing activities that you do, because kids are like sponges. They listen and they follow everything that you do. They are learning. They're going to carry these behaviors into their adulthood, whether they're negative or positive, right? So let's create an environment that's positive for them where they're not having childhood trauma and going through the things that you did when you were younger. Let's make a more positive environment for them and teach them how to say affirmations on their own. I encouraged my friend the other day about just saying positive affirmations on your way to work, positive affirmations while you're taking your child to daycare. Have your child say the positive affirmations too. Look at themselves in the mirror, or while you're driving, you guys could just back and forth like I am smart, I am capable, I am strong, I am powerful. All of these things to help start their day, and you'll see a difference in your day if you start it off in a positive way. Therapy and support, of course, therapy is not seen as something that everyone is just willing to go do. A lot of people think therapy is someone trying to fix them, that's going to point out their flaws, or someone that's going to tell them what they're doing wrong, when really therapy is about you. Therapy is about teaching you how to cope with things that you've been through, how to cope with things that you're going to go through. So your anxiety, your depression, life is going to be lifing for the rest of your life. Things are going to happen. You're going to go through things. That's what life is about. It's about learning, but learning how to deal with stress, learning how to cope with it instead of like suppressing it, not working through your emotions, not taking time for yourself, not learning how to deep breathe, how to de-stress. When you have yourself in a stressful state of mind, your body is also in that state. So your fight or flight response, um your adrenaline, your um everything is just super high. So you have adrenaline rushing through your body, your heart rate's high, you're breathing high. So all of this have an effect on your body physically. You are lowering your immune system. You are causing a space for disease. So it's very important to learn these techniques. It's very important to learn how to deal with anxiety, and especially if it's something that we're dealing with on a daily basis. Right now is a time in our society where everyone is super anxious. Things are happening. Everyone is just all over the place. So, learning these techniques, taking time for yourself, learning how to take time out for self-care, learning how to relax on your own. And it doesn't take money all the time. Sometimes it's a walk outside. Sometimes it's time alone and quiet in your home, meditation, journaling. All of these things are very therapeutic and kind of helps calm your mind. Sometimes if you get it off of your mind and put it on paper, that helps. I tell people to create lists. Some people say how they have all these things running through their mind. At the end of the day, they can't sleep. Get a piece of paper out and write down your to-do list. Now it's there on paper. When you get up, you can pick that up again. You don't have to continue think about it over and over and over and over again. But that's just a few techniques. But like I said, in therapy, there's cognitive behavioral therapy, there's trauma focused therapy, there's solution focused therapy. There are different types of therapies that are used to kind of help you overcome those challenges, begin your healing journey. and become the better version of yourself. I do tell people in therapy, be sure that um you are in a space where you feel comfortable, and you are in a space where you feel safe enough to open up. So make sure that your therapist is someone that you connect with. If it's not, of course, look around for another therapist or request another therapist. Catalyst Counseling Therapy Services in Gulfport and Biloxi, they have an office in Gulfport and Biloxi, is a very good um, therapy group here on the coast in Biloxi, Mississippi, and Gulfport, Mississippi. They have excellent, amazing therapists who work with children, adults, um, couples, group therapy, and they have several therapists. So be sure to select someone who is compatible with you, and don't be afraid to say, I don't think that this is going to work out. I'm going to seek therapy somewhere else, because like I said, therapy is for you. Have self compassion. Be kind to yourself. Don't beat up on yourself so much. I know so many people who are like, I'm my worst critic. Yes, we are supposed to self reflect. We are supposed to make ourselves better, but celebrate the small moments. I know you have some things that you've accomplished, so celebrate your weekly wins. Like, discuss things that you don't even have to discuss everything that you've done, but just acknowledge those moments when you've completed something that you set out as a goal for the week or for the day. You know, make sure that you're acknowledging yourself in those moments, and make sure that you are giving yourself credit for what you do. Don't always just beat up on yourself. Um, let yourself know that you are deserving of love and respect, and that you're capable. Setting boundaries. I touched on setting boundaries a little bit, but I feel like we don't do this enough. Setting boundaries is not just setting boundaries um, at work, but setting boundaries at home, setting boundaries with family, setting boundaries with friends. Just because someone is related to you, just because they're in your family, it doesn't give them a pass to treat you whatever way they want to treat you. And this goes for parents, cousins, brothers, sisters, anyone, anybody who's disturbing your mental health. You need to recognize those triggers. Recognize, and when I say triggers, triggers could be people, triggers could be places, triggers could be um things, activities, whatever it is where you feel like, okay, now pay attention to your body. Now I'm feeling anxious. My heart is racing. I don't feel as comfortable as I felt before this person walked in the room. Okay, set the boundaries to, if it's a person who causes you anxiety and stresses you out mentally, avoid being around that person so much. I mean, they may be a family member, but you can avoid being around them as much, because you have to protect your own mental health, and nobody else is going to do that besides you. You have to set the tone so that everyone else will follow. If you don't set the boundaries and set the tone and the groundwork for yourself, I'm telling you, people will run over you. You also have to do inner child work. So inner child work, of course, we hear this all the time. Just, going back to the time to where you felt like you were lacking or didn't have, or, you had less than you felt like you needed at the time, and just kind of work through the moments of like, um, what would you do in that moment if you were able to go back to yourself as a child, and what would you say to yourself as a child? It's about giving yourself love and validation in that moment, and kind of letting go and not holding any grudges. Forgiveness is for yourself. You're not necessarily forgiving the person that wronged you. You are letting it go for yourself, because you're really holding on to something. Keeping things suppressed, keeping things inside, is only hurting yourself. Breaking generational curses. Oh my goodness. This is a big one. A lot of people, I will say that now, I do see a lot of people changing their parenting style in the African American community. We always hear this gentle parenting, letting your kid express themselves, letting them, be emotional, letting them have their moment, teaching them how to channel through their emotions, how to express themselves when they're mad. Like, I feel like we are breaking curses. We are doing new things in this area, and I'm loving it. I do think that it can be still, practiced more often throughout the African American community for sure, but just in general, allowing children the space to learn, the space to grow, the space to work through their own emotions. They are young and learning, and of course, if you went through some things in your childhood, you're learning how to adjust from that and become the best version of yourself as well. So just letting them know they're loved unconditionally, always having a safe environment for them. Children love consistency and safety. They love routine. They love feeling like they are able to express themselves and they have someone there to back them. They love to be protected. So being consistent with children, like if you tell them that you're going to do something, follow through, that creates trust, that creates that bond, and that allows them to trust you with what you say and trust being around you. Um, Open communication. Yeah, we talked about open communication, allowing your child to express themselves and you being open with how you feel and direct with what you want them to do, of course. Um, but yeah, breaking generational curses, breaking the cycle. This is how you create a safe environment for your child, and you create a safe environment for yourself to heal. You can't heal in the same environment that made you sick, meaning you can't overcome the things that caused you trauma if you're still sitting in the trauma. You got to create those boundaries. You got to create that healing space. You got to move around. You got to do better than what was done to you previously. And you do that by starting your healing journey, going to therapy, recognizing those triggers, creating those boundaries, creating a better space for yourself and your children. So, we discussed childhood trauma, how that can lead to validation seeking behaviors, low self esteem, how to heal those wounds, of course, seeking therapy, having self compassion, and intentional parenting. I just want everyone to take away from here a small step towards healing, whether that's starting therapy, starting to do your daily affirmation, journaling, even just recognizing triggers, paying attention to your body, and creating boundaries. And I also want everyone to understand that every step counts. This is a healing journey. That's why they call it a journey. It's not overnight. It's not something quick. It's not something that's going to happen. And you may have to revisit this healing journey if you feel like you're healed and then something else comes up in your life and triggers something that you thought you healed from. That's why it's a journey. It's just ongoing. Like, things will happen to us, and that's something that we can't change. I always tell people to focus on the things that you can change. The things that you can't change, that are outside of your grasp, outside of your control, you got to let that go. Let that go, and control the things that you can. And when that time comes, when it comes for you to deal with something that you can't control, you'll be able to handle it better because you are a better person. You're becoming a better person because you're developing all these positive aspects of yourself by doing these exercises and putting in the work to better yourself. So always keep that in mind. And if you are ever suicidal, um, please reach out to the crisis hotline. You can call or text 988. If it's emergency, of course, report to the nearest ER or call 911. And I just want everyone to take away that I already said my little proverb in the discussion earlier. You can't heal in the same environment that made you sick, and we all know what that means. So I want to thank you guys for tuning in to the second episode of the Chanell Love 22 podcast. I hope you stick around for more, and I appreciate you for taking the time to listen today. Have a good day. Peace out. Chanell Love 22. It's a vibe. Like, follow, and subscribe.
Disclaimer. The information shared on the Chanell Love 22 podcast is for educational and entertainment purposes only and is not medical advice. Neither the host, guest, nor the podcast assumes responsibility for any actions taken based on this content. Listeners are strongly encouraged to consult a licensed healthcare provider before making any changes to their health, including medications, supplements, or treatments. This podcast is intended to comply with applicable regulations. However, it is not a substitute for legal or medical advice specific to your location. Listeners outside of the United States should ensure they follow healthcare guidance and regulations relevant to their regions. Thank you for listening, and remember, health is wealth.